Well, news of the day, and we're going to start off with what everybody in the hockey world's talking about, John Tortorella's rant after last night's game. And I thought about doing a video at like about 11 o'clock my time to discuss it, because that was around when I could have done a video on it. And I thought, no. Tortorella had a meltdown, which is understandable. Now, the NHL has come out and explained themselves. So let's go into the explanation from Colin Campbell, NHL hockey operations, as to why time wasn't added back after the Blackhawks too many men penalty in overtime. And there's 5 points. Point 1, there was a timeout, so there was ample time to do what the officials felt they needed to do. If anything, for example, they were not rushed. Okay, well, why didn't they put the time back on? Number 2, we have a video of the referee. Chris Schlenker was the referee checking on this, skating over, questioning the clock operator in the penalty box, then going back over, giving an explanation to Brad Shaw. Okay, so why didn't they put any time back on? The penalty was assessed. This is point 3. The penalty assessed as a too many men, which requires an assessment of the play, i.e. too many men. Kane received the pass, then the officials made an assessment of the player going to the bench and blew the whistle after deciding it was too many men on the ice. The whistle does not sound as soon as Kane touches the puck. It's not a delayed high stick, trip, etc. Okay. Number 4. The on-ice officials can always adjust the clock if they feel it is required. The official timer can notify the on-ice officials that there are issues at any time from his perspective. Toronto can get involved if we see issues. Assessing when the whistle is blown is hard for us to do sitting in Toronto and not being in the building live. I don't like that explanation. Because you're watching at home, right? And you're like, why didn't the whistle go sooner? And we've all had this happen that happens often. There are a lot of times where I'll watch time on the clock and I'll listen to the whistle and be like, man, they let at least a couple of seconds go off there. But when it happens early in the period, those slip by. And it does happen where it just slips by. And it's in the last couple of minutes that time's got to go back up on the clock. Which is strange. You would think they'd be all over it throughout the entire game just in case they need those seconds at the end of the period. But in general, you don't see that very often. And then number 5, what John said in his press conference was unprofessional along with unacceptable. We're dealing with it, and I've already had an initial conversation with both Jarmo and John. So the NHL's official stance seems to be, go talk to the ref. There's nothing in here saying time didn't come off the clock. There's nothing in here saying it didn't happen. It happens a lot. Now, usually the referee will go over and check. But what John Tortorella is saying took place is the referee saying, no, we're not going to do that. No, sorry. And of course, my point on it is this, they had a 2-0 lead. I think Tortorella was already ticked off enough that they blew the 2-0 lead in the third period. I think he was already mad at some of the calls the officials were making before this. And so he was already pretty animated as it was. And it's one of those things that, again, this is not the only game that it happens. It's not something that was done just to screw over the Columbus Blue Jackets. It just happened to do this last night. And the NHL's punting it. They are punting it. They cannot get rid of this topic fast enough. Like, oh, John's comments were out of bounds. Okay, here's an explanation for why we didn't get involved. And none of it says that the right call was made. And that's where I have issues with the league. So we'll go back to Game 7 between San Jose and Vegas. No, they matter. San Jose and Vegas, Game 7, the wrong call was made, and the NHL can't get involved, and they can't do anything about it. And they couldn't. And they made an apology afterwards, apparently, although we never heard that publicly. The NHL needs to understand that when these kinds of things happen, they need to be able to come forward and say, we screwed up. Just say it. Just say, in this situation, an official screwed things up. John Tortorella has every right to be mad because Korpisalo now is listed. He said Korpisalo could be out for weeks, which right now is the official position. And now you've got Kivlenic and Merzlikins as your goaltending tandem, and neither of them have an NHL win. So it could submarine Columbus in a division that's tough enough as it is with Korpisalo. Now it's darn near impossible without him. for however long he's out with a bad knee. So I get what Tortorella's saying here. Is he right? Again, it happens in a lot of games. I don't think this was done just to screw them over. I'm just surprised that nothing changed. We live in a world where a referee can go, well, yeah, that went in, but I was going to blow the whistle. So it doesn't count. Yeah, the puck's in the net, but the play was already in the process of being blown dead. Well, yeah, the play's blown dead, but on a continuation, the puck goes into the net. They seem to make it more difficult than it should be. They make things more complicated than they should be in the National Hockey League. I don't understand it. I really don't. Because again, for new fans, you look at that and you go, why didn't they just put a second back on the clock? I don't know. The NHL, that's what they do. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see if anything further comes of this. I figure they give him a slap on the wrist, he being Tortorella, and I think Columbus probably pays him for it. So if he gets a $10,000 fine, I think Columbus finds a way to give him a $10,000 bonus. If your name's John, you get a $10,000 bonus this week. Oh, what a surprise, your name's John. And, so we'll see what comes out of this. And if there's any sudden rule changes that are completely unrelated to this, there won't be. But it is one of those things that, that goal would have gone in. But again, I think he was already pretty ticked off going into that overtime. And he was already pretty mad at his team as it was. GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Brisebois, was asked by Pierre LeBrun about Cooper's job, and Cooper's job is safe. It's interesting with John Cooper in Tampa because the Tampa Bay Lightning are underachieving by our standards, but they're playing pretty well and they're on a 3-game winning streak right now. So apparently Cooper has nothing to worry about. His job is safe. Now, if they actually miss the playoffs, then we'd probably have something else to talk about. If they get destroyed in the first round again, we'll have something to talk about. But for right now, he's good. And your 3 stars of the week are Victor Hedman, Jordan Binnington, and John Tavares. In that order. So Hedman, first star of the week, Binnington number 2, and Tavares number 3. They had an interesting article on NHL.com, I highly recommend it, where they talked about the ice at the Cotton Bowl and how they had a whole bunch of rain. And that rain was melting the ice, and it made it so that the layer where the ice is painted white, and you've got all the logos and everything painted on the ice, it was all basically just sludge. So they basically had to start over. That happened on Friday, and by the time Sunday night rolls around, it looked fine again. But this is why you only have limited outdoor games, and having them in southern locations can be tricky. The thing is, I can't throw too many stones, because if you had an outdoor game going on here this week, it's supposed to rain here during this week too. So it's not as warm as it was there. It was 69 Fahrenheit, which is about 20 degrees Celsius. That'll melt ice, obviously. But as obvious as that is here, I think it's supposed to be 7 or 8 degrees on the first, somewhere in that region. It's still too warm here for an outdoor game. That's why anytime I hear Canucks fans say, oh, we need another outdoor game in Vancouver, I go, no, we don't. We had one and we had to close the roof. It wasn't an outdoor game. It was a cash grab. But, so hopefully the ice is okay. It's supposed to cool down between now and when that game takes place on the 1st. The trick is, of course, that the ice is good so that you don't have crappy ice that potentially leads to an injury. So, we'll see how things go for the Cotton Bowl from here. Boston news, McAvoy's on the IR. Krug won't play tomorrow night. He's not on the IR as far as I know. But without Krug and McAvoy, they won last night, so I don't know how they do that. I really don't. I know that there's a lot of depth in that organization on the blue line, and so hopefully that depth can continue to cover while these guys are out. That's major blow. Losing McAvoy, the minute muncher on the blue line, and Krug, who's the offense on the blue line. So it's tough to lose both of those guys at the same time. And if you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, the bad news is both Schultz and Dumoulin aren't skating yet. It looks like Crosby's been working on getting back into shape, but he hasn't joined the team yet for practices, so we don't have a timeline on when Crosby's going to be back yet. And this is right about where we had expected to see him back in regular practices. Bjugstad, though, has been practicing, and he has been skating. So Bukestad is the closest of the four, I would think, right now. And it just shows that not just that Pittsburgh's had injuries this year, they've had tons, but key injuries. Schultz and Dumoulin on the blue line, Crosby up front, Bukestad up front. Bukestad's more depth guy than the others, but still, that's a lot of players to be out at the same time when Pittsburgh's come through it. And for World Juniors from yesterday, Finland beat Kazakhstan 7-1, and the U.S. beat the Russians 3-1. As the top teams in that group, U.S., Russia, Canada, they're all just sort of all jumbled together. So Canada beat the U.S., beat the Russians, and Russia destroyed Canada. Okay. I'm glad I'm not doing a power rankings for that, because I'd have no idea who the best and the worst was out of that, because on any given game, any given matchup between these teams, it seems to be a completely different answer. But there you go. So again, we'll continue to do World Junior, where we'll talk about what happened the day before, and then as we get into the medal round, a little bit more discussion on who's playing who and who's most likely to win, and maybe I'll even do predictions. But that being said, we're done for now. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, especially regarding this statement put up by the NHL, which seems to be weird, evasive, and doesn't really answer any questions. So, let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And honestly, my opinion on the Tortorella rant, I wouldn't fine him personally. I know the NHL probably will, because he's smack-talking officials, but I don't really blame him in this situation. So, it's understandable. That's why understandable is on the board. But I'd be interested to know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.